Welcome to the Daily Globe. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In a stunning and historic decision, the U.S. Supreme Court has struck down the sweeping tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump during his second term. The ruling, delivered after months of heated debate and anticipation, sent shockwaves through Washington and around the world. Legal experts and political analysts are already calling it one of the most consequential decisions in recent memory, with far-reaching implications for the balance of power in the federal government. This landmark ruling dismantles a central pillar of Trump's America First economic strategy, which had relied heavily on aggressive tariffs to protect American industries and jobs. By overturning these measures, the court has not only redefined presidential authority over international trade, but also set a new precedent for how far executive power can reach in shaping the nation's economic destiny. Global markets reacted with a mix of volatile relief and deep uncertainty. For months, businesses both large and small had struggled to adapt to the unpredictable tariff regime, facing rising costs and disrupted supply chains. Now, with the tariffs suddenly lifted, investors and companies are scrambling to reassess their strategies, unsure of what the future holds. The decision is being celebrated by many as a victory for free trade and international cooperation, yet it also plunges the U.S. and its global partners into a logistical and financial quagmire as they race to unwind complex trade agreements and recalibrate their economic relationships. The ripple effects are being felt in boardrooms and government offices across continents. The scale of unwinding these tariffs is staggering. Tens of billions in monthly revenue are now in question. Customs officials, shipping companies and multinational corporations face a Herculean challenge as they navigate the sudden changes, with mountains of paperwork and regulatory hurdles to overcome. But the court's verdict goes far beyond the issue of tariffs. It strikes at the very heart of American governance, reaffirming the foundational principle of separation of powers. By reining in the executive branch, the justices have sparked a renewed debate over the limits of presidential authority and the role of Congress in shaping national policy. The justices have now drawn a clear, if controversial line on presidential authority in trade. Their decision is likely to be studied and debated for years to come as lawmakers and future presidents grapple with its implications. The economic and political landscape is irrevocably altered. As the nation stands at a crossroads, the path forward is anything but clear, and the world watches closely to see how America will navigate this new era of uncertainty and change. To understand the Supreme Court's decision, we must revisit the origins of the tariffs. In his second term, President Trump launched a trade revolution, using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, to justify broad new tariffs. A baseline 10% tariff on nearly all imports plus higher country-specific duties, reshaped costs for American businesses, and punished nations deemed unfair traders. The administration framed these measures as essential for national security and economic survival, arguing that tariffs were necessary to reclaim economic sovereignty. This marked a sharp break from decades of bipartisan free trade consensus, prioritizing protectionism and domestic industry. The high-stakes gamble set the stage for a monumental clash with both America's trading partners and the constitutional limits of presidential power. The bold vision would soon face its greatest legal test. Legal challenges to Trump's tariffs came quickly as soon as the sweeping measures were announced. Businesses, trade groups, and legal experts mobilized, filing lawsuits in federal courts across the country. The legal community was abuzz, with many questioning the scope of presidential power under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA. Plaintiffs argued that the IEPA was never intended to serve as a tool for broad trade policy, but rather as a safeguard for genuine national security threats. They claimed the administration's actions set a dangerous precedent, blurring the lines between economic policy and emergency powers. The central question before the courts was profound. Can a president declare a national emergency over economic grievances and bypass Congress's constitutional authority to regulate commerce? Judges weighed arguments about the separation of powers, the intent of Congress, and the limits of executive authority. In August 2025, after months of hearings and deliberations, a federal appellate court sided with the business challengers, ruling that the tariffs exceeded the president's legal authority and must be struck down. However, the court stayed its own ruling, recognizing that an immediate end to the tariffs could cause chaos in global markets and disrupt ongoing business operations. The Trump administration responded swiftly, appealing to the Supreme Court. Officials warned that removing the tariffs overnight could trigger catastrophic economic fallout, threatening jobs, industries, and America's negotiating position abroad. Recognizing the extraordinary stakes and the urgent need for clarity, the Supreme Court agreed to fast-track the case, compressing what could have been years of litigation into a matter of weeks. But in a stunning turn of events, today's shock decision from the court preempted months of further legal wrangling, delivering a verdict that few had anticipated so soon. Instead of a drawn-out battle, the nation now faces the chaotic aftermath of a definitive and final judgment. Markets are reeling, businesses are scrambling to adapt, and policymakers are left to grapple with the new legal landscape. The legal process has ended abruptly, and the consequences are immediate. The ripple effects will be felt not just in boardrooms and courtrooms, but in households and communities across the country. The stage is set for a new era in American trade and executive power, as the nation comes to terms with the far-reaching impact of this historic decision. As of today, the nation is caught between a landmark legal ruling and a wave of uncertainty that has swept across every sector. The Supreme Court's decision has sent shockwaves through the country, leaving millions glued to their screens, searching for answers and clarity. In the streets, in offices, and in homes, conversations are dominated by speculation and concern about what comes next. The economic future now hangs in the balance. Customs and border protection, once enforcing strict tariff policies, must now reverse course almost overnight. The sudden shift has left officials scrambling to interpret the new legal landscape, and the ripple effects are being felt at every port and checkpoint. Official guidance is scarce, and the lack of clear instructions has left importers, exporters, and port authorities in a state of confusion. Many are unsure how to proceed, with shipments stalled and paperwork piling up. The tariffs, which had been a major source of government revenue for years, have been abruptly cut off, and now the government faces the daunting and unprecedented task of refunding up to $1 trillion to businesses across the nation. Treasury officials are under immense pressure, fielding questions from anxious business owners and trying to establish a process for the massive refunds. The timeline for change has accelerated dramatically. Plans for a 2026 decision are now obsolete, replaced by an urgent need for immediate action. Deadlines that once seemed distant are now right around the corner, forcing agencies and businesses alike to adapt at breakneck speed. For consumers, the immediate effects are subtle. Prices on store shelves remain steady for now, as most current inventory was imported under the old tariffs. Retailers and suppliers are working to manage expectations, knowing that any price changes will take time to filter through the system. Experts predict it could take up to a year before consumers see widespread price decreases. The process is gradual, with economists warning that supply chains need time to adjust and that the benefits will not be immediate for everyday shoppers. For now, the direct beneficiaries are businesses, importers, manufacturers, and retailers who will see relief first. Small business owners in particular are hopeful that the refunds and lower costs will help them recover from years of financial strain. But for the average consumer, patience will be required. The nation waits, holding its breath, as the economic machinery grinds into a new reality. Uncertainty lingers, but so does hope that this turning point will ultimately bring relief and opportunity for all. The Supreme Court's decision creates a complex landscape of winners and losers. Thousands of American companies are now entitled to massive refunds, but the process will be a bureaucratic nightmare. The government faces a huge fiscal hole, with lost revenue and the need to repay up to $1 trillion, potentially forcing new debt or spending cuts. The ruling's impact on inflation is uncertain. While tariffs contributed to rising prices, cost savings will take months to reach consumers. In the short term, uncertainty will dominate, delaying business investment. Global trade flows will shift again, as companies reconsider supply chains and trading partners face pressure to remove retaliatory tariffs. American exporters, especially in agriculture, may benefit, but the path to a new trade equilibrium will be fraught with negotiations. The financial fallout is just beginning. Politically, the Supreme Court's decision is a direct check on presidential authority, challenging Trump's executive-led approach. Supporters hail it as a victory for the rule of law. Critics call it judicial overreach, undermining economic security. The administration's options are now limited to narrower, temporary tariff tools, or seeking new authority from a divided Congress. The ruling curtails the administration's aggressive trade agenda and sets a powerful precedent on emergency powers. This case will be studied as a landmark in the ongoing tug-of-war between government branches. The message is clear. Executive power in trade has limits, especially when it resembles domestic taxation. The balance of power has shifted. Beyond politics and economics, the tariffs have had a real impact on American families and small businesses. Prices for everyday goods rose, stretching household budgets and squeezing small businesses, unable to absorb higher costs. Many businesses faced impossible choices: absorb costs and risk closure, or pass them on and lose customers. The impact was uneven. Some sectors lost jobs, while others, like agriculture, suffered from retaliatory tariffs and lost export markets. The social scars of economic uncertainty and hardship will take time to heal. Today's ruling offers hope for relief, but for many, the damage is already done. The human cost is a stark reminder that trade policy shapes lives, not just balance sheets. The consequences are profound and lasting. As the dust settles, experts agree the White House's catastrophic predictions are overstated. While short-term disruption is real, most analysts see the long-term effect as a net positive for the U.S. economy. The removal of tariffs should foster stability and growth, but the transition will be messy and slow. Businesses await refunds, and supply chains will take time to adjust. Legally, the administration's options are now limited to targeted country-specific disputes, not sweeping tariffs. The ruling sets a clear precedent. Future presidents will need explicit congressional authority for broad tariffs. The legislative branch regains power, and future trade policy will be more cautious and deliberative. The era of unilateral executive action is over. The Supreme Court's decision is a powerful reaffirmation of checks and balances in American democracy. It reminds us that executive power is substantial, but not unlimited, always constrained by the Constitution and subject to judicial review. The fallout from the IEEPA tariffs, economic disruption and hardship, shows the risks of concentrated power. This ruling isn't about economic theory but about process. Only Congress can impose nationwide taxes. The decision ensures major policy shifts require debate and consensus, not unilateral action. As the nation navigates the aftermath, the enduring message is clear: the American system remains resilient, and the rule of law prevails. In a world of democratic uncertainty, this is a powerful statement of constitutional strength.